The Royal Western India Turf Club, One Play Sports and Kingfisher invite you to live the ultra life on the biggest day of the year.
Away they go for the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby.
It may be behind closed doors, but we're going digital, bringing you closer to the action than ever before.
A page of history will be returned.
Which of the 4 colts, 4 geldings and 4 fillies will emulate Warhammer, who romped to success 12 months ago? The final pieces of fine-tuning have been made, the final workouts have been done, and we're all set to discover who will be the 2021 champion of the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby. We're less than 24 hours away from the highlights of India's equine calendar, and you can watch the action live right here on One Play Sports. Welcome everybody to Singapore, which in a strange twist will be the television and media headquarters of the 2021 running of the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby. And we're going to take this opportunity to look forward to the great race alongside a man who is better judged than anyone to give you his opinions. He's the CEO and founder of One Play Sports and an equine expert in his own right, Mr. Mohit Lalvani. And Mohit, obviously strange circumstances as they were when we covered the Bangalore Derby back in January, but nevertheless it's a mouth-watering prospect, this race.
It certainly is, and you're right, it's an extremely strange time to be broadcasting a race the way we are, a phygital event, as we've now coined the phrase. The thing is, India's suddenly seen a spike, so it's a bit more precarious than even the Bangalore Derby was. I know this year's Indian Derby will be run behind closed door. It's, no spectators pretty much. A few guests at the most, a few invitees, people who are part of the operations, our crew of course, but that's it, and complete social distancing. So, it's a tough situation out there, and I was to fly there on Thursday night, but obviously couldn't just take the risk, and we decided I'd stay here and do the telecast out of here.
Well, Mumbo's Loss is our game that you're here with us in the studio, Mohit, to give us your expert opinion. And Mohit's spot on, 600 invited guests on a day that usually attracts in excess of 25,000 people, not just for the race, for the pomp and the pageantry the whole day. There's the breakfast with the champions. It's not going to happen this year, but the good people at Kingfisher have made sure that the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby is going to be brought to you up close and personal. You have the best seat in the house if you join us on One Play Sports from 4 p.m. IST tomorrow. That's Sunday the 28th of March, or later today if you're watching this of course on Sunday morning. We'll bring you the Derby live and one of the support races as well, with Mohit's expertise live in the studio, and his very glamorous better half, Mrs. Mandira Lalvani, will be here to add some much needed glamour to the proceedings alongside us two old fuddy-duddies. So with that said, let's run you through the runners and riders, the dozen of distinction that will make the dash for the cash and run away with the honour of the champion of the 2021 Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby. Well, interesting at the top, Prasanna Kumar's Ansaldo. It was Prasanna Kumar, of course, who trained the winner Warhammer, who was one of the most impressive winners of the race in history. It'll be some shock if Ansaldo makes it back-to-back derbies for Prasanna tomorrow. Ashwa Bravo for Shivanis Reddy and Imran Khan. Number 3, the horse we saw win the Bangalore Derby live on One Play Sports in January, Lagarde, with Akshay Kumar, who along with his trainer SS Atalahi is bidding to take their first ever Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby title. North Star is number 4 on the race card. TS Jodha takes the ride. Pissarro, unfortunately, a non-runner, so SS Atalahi's hopes all pinned really on Lagarde. And as we move on to the race card, number 6 on your race card for Pishroff is Roaring Tiger. Pessi Schroff with no fewer than a quarter of the field in this race tomorrow, including a very interesting contender we'll come to shortly. Sporting Memories for S. Jodha is number 7. Storm Trigger for S. Jodha is number 8. Now, Timor is an interesting outsider, possibly. I'll get Mohit's thoughts on that later. The winner of the 2000 Guineas in southern India. Alluring Silver is number 10 on the race card. That is a horse that brings with it the Oaks form that is also represented by the 2 horses that finished in front of her on that occasion for PS Chauhan. And right at the bottom of the card, arguably 2 of the most interesting runners. 2 fillies hoping to become the first filly for 8 years to take the race after Hall of Famer in 2017. Forest Flame for P. Trevor. Immortality for the interesting jockey booking that was only confirmed most recently for Suraj Naraidu. Again, Mohit's thoughts on that shortly. And Successor brings up the rear. Will she bring up the rear on race day for a man that's no stranger to Derby success? Dallas Todiwala. Jay Chinoy takes the ride. So very quickly on that jockeying booking, because it is significant for Immortality and many people think it is a good thing in this race. Tell us what happened with Suraj Naraidu, because that jockey booking was only confirmed as we record this on Saturday night mere hours ago.
So you're right. So Suraj Naraidu actually is in the process of a steward's inquiry over in Bangalore for the stayers trial, if I'm not mistaken. And at this point in time, he's managed to get a stay on the proceedings because the Board of Appeal has sent that back to the stewards for further hearing and for, well, redeliberation to really take a look at the new evidence that was possibly presented. I haven't looked at the race. I didn't go into the details. I don't really know what happened on that occasion. But the good news is that a jockey of the caliber of Suraj Naraidu, who won this race last year, is on board. A horse that really is a leading contender.
Well, he's going for the hat-trick, and the last jockey to complete the hat-trick is the man that now trains the horse that he's riding in Pesci Shroff. And would it be fair to say that Pesci Shroff is like Mr. Derby? I mean, 8 times as a jockey. He's already trained the winner of the race once as well. I mean, he's done it all really, hasn't he?
He has. He's a good friend, so I can say this. He's won it as a jockey 8 times. He's won it as a trainer just once. So he's got to be there tomorrow at the games. He's got a very strong hand tomorrow. Very, very strong hand.
He certainly has, because Forest Flame, who, I mean, obviously a filly, so I can say it, becoming a little bit always the bridesmaid, never the bride, Forest Flame. We'll look at her form in a minute. But there's the two great contrasting narratives. Obviously, Suraj going for the hat-trick in the race. Pesci Shroff winning it would be a confined double digits if he takes it for the second time as a trainer, having won it 8 times as a jockey. And contrast that with SS Atalahi, who's trying to win the race for the first time, as is his jockey. So the narrative and the story going into this race is fantastic.
It is, and he's got two really strong runners in this. He's got Lagarde and he's got Forest Flame. Forest Flame went down by a hairbreadth to Immortality in the Indian Oaks. She was, I thought, a bit unlucky when it came to the Bangalore Derby where she lost to Lagarde. I think he was the better horse on the day, but I don't think the pace of the race suited her at all. I sense that's the Indian Oaks that we're taking a look at, and you'll see that Forest Flame's coming through on the rail, and Immortality, is on the outside, and P.S. Chauhan's on her, and she's come up on the outside. In the yellow sleeves, you've got Immortality, and she's running at her, and I think this has a lot to do with the 2,400 meter marker. Forest Flame, if you take a look at the top picture, has just lugged out just ever so little. She just hung out a little bit. That could be because she was tiring at the end of that 2,400 meter trip. They went quick. It's a fast time, and Immortality was running on.
But the Forest Flame is the common denominator in the strongest pieces of form going into this race, because you've just seen Forest Flame, as Mohit said, just pipped, literally pipped at the post by Immortality. I don't think you can say she was really pipped in the Bangalore Derby that we covered live on One Play Sports, the Kingfisher Ultra Bangalore Derby. Let's take a look back at that race, Mohit, because we've just seen Forest Flame unable to hold off the challenge of Immortality there, and here she just simply couldn't rein in Lagarde. I mean, Lagarde always looked like he had her measure.
And he did, and just for a moment, if you see, he hangs out as well. Really, this horse, he amazes me, because I think he's just still learning to race. And Forest Flame, in contrast to the Oaks, had to come wide, and the Bangalore Derby track is a difficult track to come wide on. It's a much shorter straight, and if you've traveled wide round the bend, you've lost a lot of ground. I don't think the pace of the race suited her. In Bombay, in the Oaks, she took the shortest way home. In the Bangalore Derby, she had to come wide around the field. I don't think that helped her. I think she would have run closer for sure. Would she have beaten Lagarde on the day? I don't think so, not under the circumstances. I think over a mile and a half, I still think Immortality looked, even though there was a hairbreadth just separating the two when we looked at them right now, I think Immortality definitely looked the strongest when the winning post arrived.
I mean, that's the problem with Forest Flame, isn't it? You're almost certain to see her in the mix at the end, but on those 2 runs we've seen, she got first run on Immortality and couldn't hold the other filly off. In the second run, obviously, Lagarde got first run, and in the end, remember, she couldn't even get second spot in that. It was Sovereign Legend that finished second, and that brings me to another point. We've seen the likes of Sovereign Legend, the likes of Antibes, who was disappointing in the Indian Oaks, decide not to reoppose. And is that significant? Because we've got a very small field by Derby standards here, just the 12 runners. There were 20 when Warhammer romped in a procession last year. So do you think the likes of Immortality and Lagarde have scared lots off?
I think they have. I think the 3 have scared lots off. You know, I think you've got Forest Flame, Immortality, and Lagarde. I think they've scared a lot off because their form has been consistent. You know, there are a few I'm surprised to see, you know, that aren't running. Black Pearl, for one, he was unbeaten coming from Calcutta. So, you know, I'm surprised he's not running. I figure something's gone wrong. Nisus is another one who ran, you know, half a length behind Lagarde in the Ruya on the same day as the Oaks. That was his lead up to this race, even if over a mile and a quarter. The thing is, I was surprised not to see these 2 because, you know, they came, you know, one came with great form across the region, the other came with a great reputation from Calcutta. So I was surprised. I think these 3 have certainly scared off a significant bunch of the others.
You've mentioned that Rua Gold Cup, which obviously is over the same Derby distance as was the Oaks, and that's another interesting point, isn't it? Because when you're dealing with thoroughbreds of this calibre, and obviously it's a very strange situation in all sports, and racing's no exception in terms of the preparation and the lead up to these big races, 3 and a bit weeks, it's not much time in terms of recovery. And you'd have to say, on the evidence of that Rua Gold Cup and what we saw with that ding-dong between Immortality and Forest Flame, you could argue that Immortality and Forest Flame had the harder race as opposed to Lagarde that day.
Well, I'm not sure. I'll tell you why. Because Lagarde, he made all the running on that day. He did slow it down. And at the top of the turn, Nisus came at him. And for a moment when I was watching the race, I thought to myself, he's going to get beat. And he didn't get beat, and like he did in the Bangalore Derby, he dug in, he started to find more, he started to stretch out more, he possibly broke Nisus's heart on the day. But he's the kind of horse that he's extremely brave. I think he likes getting into those skirmishes. I think he finds his best when he's being challenged, and I think that's what the 2 fillies will really have to contend with. If they are running at him and he sees them coming, he's not going to let them go by easily, I can tell you that. And like I said at this, you know, at the start of our conversation, Patrick, it's odd, he's 4 years old, but I just get the sense, watching him, that he's just still figuring out his purpose on, you know, in life. The reason he was born and the reason that he was born for was to do exactly what he's doing. He still runs a bit green, I think. He still, you know, I still think he's getting better.
Of course, you mentioned those 2 victories recently for Lagarde, and brilliantly ridden, quite frankly, to get good track position, because the draw often plays a big part in the Indian Derby. Clearly not as many runners as last year. Warhammer didn't have the best draw last year, but Suraj got him a lovely position around that notorious first turn. When we look at the draw for the big race, obviously Lagarde's connections won't be happy. He's essentially going to be drawn widest of all, drawn 12, but obviously we have the non-runner. Does that concern you? If it was a bigger foot, if he was, say, drawn 20 of 20, it'd be more of a concern than being drawn 12 of 12, but it's still going to take some jockey craftsmanship to get him across and get him a good position and not stuck 6 or 7 wide.
Well, I think, you know, if you take a look at the Bombay track, what happens is, as you come out of the gates, you hit a turn, and you actually hit the sharpest turn of the entire track. It's in regular years, you've got the crowd shouting, so you've got the horses on the wide outside that are starting to look for position. They come in. There's a big rush at the turn, for the first turn. The horses wide are often kept out, but they do come in. There's a lot of argy-bargy, and generally the horses on the inside tend to get trapped if they don't have that early speed and are often sent to the back of the pack. Now, saying that, in a largish field like 20, you'd ideally want to be drawn anywhere between, I would say, 5 and 8. That's just fantastic, especially if you've got some speed. and you're able to switch in, or maybe even 4 and 8, and you can get some cover on the rail. For a horse like Lagarde, in a small field of 12 horses, he's drawn wide, but my sense is that he's got a lot of early speed. He's going to be up there. There is a pacemaker in the form of Successor in the race. So I have a feeling a lot of the, he will find himself in a good position even before they've finished that first turn. And by the time they come down the backstretch, he's going to get cover. I think the race will play out to his advantage because of the draw.
Just to give you some of the other leading contenders and their draw after the draw was conducted on Friday. Obviously, the guard we mentioned is drawn 12, Forest Flame drawn 9, Immortality drawn 6. So the connections of Immortality will be pleased with that draw. And Moet mentioned that we're going phygital with this 2021 running of the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby, and that means the draw is available for you to watch. It was conducted again behind closed doors yesterday at the Royal Western Indian Turf Club. You can catch that if you scroll up and down on YouTube or Facebook. Risha Thakur is on the ground for One Play Sports, creating all kinds of great content. You can see the horses and their track work, interviews with the jockeys, the trainers and the owners, the leading contenders. So we've got you covered on One Play Sports for all your Derby build-up, along of course with our live coverage tomorrow. Now, I've been reading all the media. You've been writing some wonderful columns. I think the Times of India.
Yes, that's right.
You don't mess around, do you? Only the top titles you give your words to.
Well, it's it is India's largest publication. Yeah. This is India's biggest race, and yeah, I guess it's a great platform.
But come on, you're the same as all the others. Everyone, every headline, and the papers are writing it all around India, all around the world. This is going to be a race that stops India tomorrow, and it's going to be live on One Play Sports. They're all saying it's a 3-horse race. They're all saying Immortality, and then they're saying Lagarde, and they're saying, well, if there's a disaster with those two, Forest Flame will pick up the pieces. I'm going through. You've got to remember, this is a 12-horse race, not a 9-runner race, and we all know what can happen in horse racing. It's not an exact science. Remember, 1947, Her Majesty, 1 to 9, Her Majesty started, ran up the backside of the pacemaker, lost, I think, about 20 lengths, ended up getting beaten in the nose. So accidents and surprises can happen. So come on, talk me through the other 9 contenders. I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, Time Moore, the winner of the South India 2000 Guineas. The rating of 90 puts it up there with the likes of Lagarde and Immortality. Give me a lively outsider. None of this tipping favourites and short prices.
So I think if you're looking for an outsider, it just might be in the form of Roaring Tiger. I think he was really impressive in the Ruya. I think he's been impressive in the Guineas as well. He's got the ability. I think he runs on. My question is, I still think he's about 2 lengths behind Lagarde, and he's 2 lengths behind Immortality. He's got to get the run of the race. I think it's a tall order for him to get past the 3 of them. I think it's possible. North Star's another one who's got the form. When I say he's got the form,
the only maiden in the race. It's never passed the post once yet, and you're saying it's never passed the post first once yet, and you're going to say it could happen on Derby Day.
So we've had a maiden win the Indian Derby. His name is Pyare Mia. He never won a race before, never won a race after. So
it does happen.
It does happen, but is it going to happen tomorrow? I doubt it. Lightning doesn't strike twice. He's a nice enough horse. I don't think he's a grade 1 horse, and I think really that's where your top 5 are going to come from. I think I'd be surprised to see a 6th finish in there. It could be Padmanabhan's horse. He's got some decent form. Strangely, we're watching. You talked about the content that's being created over in Bombay by Richa and Sunil, and of course Amar out here who's been so helpful in getting this all together with David. But the thing is, Patrick, I watched the track work. Nobody's worked badly. I thought Immortality worked well. Lagarde was very easy, so you couldn't tell much. He just pretty much cantered around the track. Strangely, the horse that really caught my eye when it came to track work is possibly going to be the longest odds horse in the entire race. Which one do you think that is?
Successor?
No, well, you're right there. And Saldo.
Well, that's the horse right at the top of the race card.
And he just worked really well. I mean, he hasn't got the form to come out and win this race. All right, he just doesn't have it. But I mean, he really worked well, and Prasanna Kumar's brought him, a long way towards Bombay. He's won this before. But
it won't be winning as easy as Warhammer last year.
oh, he
even if
won't.
does win.
He clearly won't. But when I looked at the track work, I just said, wow, he's worked like a really, really good horse.
And something that might go down alongside Ansardo as a negative, you could also flip it around and say it's a positive. It's its first try at the Derby distance, 2,400 metres, which means obviously there's a danger that when they come into the final 400 metres, the horse will stop as if it's been shot. But conversely,
exactly,
it's unexposed at the distance.
It's absolutely right. He's absolutely unexposed at this distance. It just may come out and suit him, which reminds me I should really study his pedigree later this evening ahead of our live show tomorrow. But yeah, you know, he's. If you're asking me for, you know, for a hole-in-one, a 50-to-1 shot, the way he's worked, he's my 50-to-1 shot.
Okay, well, Pesci Schroff's obviously got a strong hand because the other two outsiders Moet gave you, a North Star, a horse that's finished behind Lagarde of late. That's another Pesci Schroff animal. 4 wins in its 7 starts as well, so the strike rate of North Star is very promising. And the other horse, what was the other outsider you gave us there? Roaring Tiger, which again brings with it that Rua Gold Cup form, where again he finished behind the principals. But Waya Srinath, the jockey of that horse, Roaring Tiger, won the Derby in 2014 with Alain Dare. So there are clues everywhere. The question is, which are the right clues and which are the red herrings? Which leads me now, I'm not going to get you to give me the 1, 2, 3, because Moet Nalvani, by the way, has 100% on One Play Sports coverage of the Ultra Life Kingfisher Ultra Derby series after putting up the winner Lagarde when we brought you our race day coverage in Bangalore back in January. So you'll have to watch the live telecast tomorrow for the 1, 2, 3 when we'll be joined by Mandira Lalvani. But what wins the races tomorrow, mate? What's going to be the champion of the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby 2021?
So at this stage, there are, you know, the logic leads to immortality in my mind, because and I'll tell you why. On form, when you take her Golconda Oaks or Golconda Derby victory, she's holding Lagarde on paper. She's holding Forest Flame on paper. She's through a common horse, obviously. Through Forest Flame, she's holding, you know, the others on paper as well, and through Lagarde, the others on paper as well. Pesci Schroff's won the Derby, so he knows what it's like to be
9
there.
times,
and he's won it with a filly, right? And you know, Jacqueline was his only Derby winner as, you know, as a trainer, but she's a filly. Multidimensional is a Derby winning stallion. Usha Stud Farm is a Derby winning stud farm.
So all these boxes are being ticked.
All these boxes are being ticked. The math is leading to immortality. However, and of course we wait for it till tomorrow before I really take my pick. Not everything, you can't count everything that's to be counted, right? And
I've got a feeling, I mean, we've talked...
Lagarde, I think, is, you know, he's the one, I think, that's been surprising me race after race after race. I think I can tell you I'm going to choose between the two of them for first and second.
So you're on the fence, but only for a matter of hours, because you will narrow
only for
it
a
down
matter
to
of
one.
hours. I actually already have, but since you've asked me to wait till tomorrow,
Keep them wanting more.
yeah, exactly. Since you've asked me to wait till tomorrow, I shall. But I'm there between these two right now. So it's not a 3-horse circus for me or a 3-ring circus for me. It's a 2-ring circus for me.
Moet Nalvani is off to study the breeding books and the form books. He'll be burning the midnight oil to make sure we bring you the winner of the race before it's been run when we rejoin you at 4 p.m. IST. Now, an interesting note here for our viewers, because I know a lot of people around the world watch the Bangalore Derby coverage on One Play Sports. If you're watching in the UK, and of course many expatriate Indians in the UK love their horse racing, which essentially the UK, the home of world horse racing really. Clocks going forward in the UK overnight, so it'll be, I'm just going to do the maths because it's now +7 in Singapore, which means, help me out here, Mo, it'll be +4.5. So it'll be plus 4.5 hours if you're in the UK. So make sure you get your timings right. We don't need to miss the best of the action. And of course, if you're watching in Southeast Asia in the Hong Kong time zone, 4 p.m. IST means 6:30 in the evening there. So do get your timings right. Join us live for the coverage between now and then. Check out all the wonderful phygital shoulder coverage that Risha Thakur has been creating for you in Mumbai. We've got every angle covered. And make sure you join us at 4 p.m. IST in this very studio where we'll be bringing you live coverage of the the Kingfisher Ultra Indian Derby 2021. This will be the only place with the doors closed at the Royal Western Indian Turf Club where you can live the ultra life with Mr. Mohit Lalvani, Mrs. Mandira Lalvani and myself. We look forward to seeing you for race day tomorrow right here on One Place Sports.